Hi.
Hello. Are Jehovah's Witnesses capable of nobility, self-sacrifice, and friendship? Yes, Ray concludes. They're capable of goodness, but then everybody else on the planet is capable of goodness. Many religious affiliations, Ray says, could benefit from the example of Jehovah's Witnesses in the area of racial integration, in their de-emphasizing of class distinctions, their comparatively strong sense of commitment and obligation toward anyone, though otherwise a complete stranger to them, who is a member in good standing in the organization. Perhaps some of the most appealing and dramatic features in their history are those occasions when they have been faced with crisis situations, in times of intense persecution or natural disasters or war, when many of them have shown a willingness to risk their own safety, possessions, or even their own lives in the interest in one way or another of fellow members. The accounts of the experiences of witnesses during the Nazi regime in Germany, during the Duvalier premiership of Quebec, or during the period of mob violence in the United States in the 1940s make absorbing reading. The sincerity of those who demonstrated a courageous and selfless concern for others rightly goes unquestioned, and I find their example both encouraging and laudable.
Having personally experienced a measure of what it means to live through years of physical difficulty, mob violence, or the dangers of imprisonment due to engaging in meetings and other activity, when these have been banned by an oppressive government, I do not underestimate the courage this often requires, the determination to hold firm to certain standards. As a sharer in such trials, I do not feel that it shows any disrespect to consider also whether these quite dramatic actions necessarily authenticate the claims of an unequaled spiritual unity, or can be viewed as distinguishing the organization thereby supported as containing Earth's only genuine Christians. Looking at matters from a broad perspective, there is no question in my mind that whatever I myself did in such circumstances was not at all something unique to Jehovah's Witnesses, but rather had undoubtedly been duplicated or excelled by people of other faiths in quite comparable circumstances, whether the dangers they faced arose from persecution or were instead due to seeking to help people by going into areas fraught with peril because of violence or savagery or disease or religious animosity and hatred.
Nor do I feel it shows any lack of appreciation for such examples of self-sacrifice to recognize that what is done in times of crisis is not always indicative of the norm prevailing in more ordinary times, in the day-to-day living that composes most of human life in any society. I am satisfied that the expressions of giving, of self-sacrifice, of compassion, fellow feeling, brotherly attachment, and strong friendship shown in such day-to-day ordinariness are, when constant and untiring, in the final analysis, often of greater significance than similar expressions made in the heat of more dramatic circumstances. I believe the evidence demonstrates the rightness of that view. I would make one final reference to the branch memorandum quoted earlier. It is from Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, and the one with the largest number of witnesses, over 100,000 at the time of the memorandum's writing. The memorandum contains many favorable statements about Nigerian witnesses, their enduring trials, their efforts to maintain neutrality during the Biafran War, the difficulties faced by children due to refusal to salute the flag. It stresses the firmness of the witnesses in holding to the organization's positions on these issues, a firmness commented on by some onlookers.
The memorandum also responded to an inquiry as to the manifestation of the fruitage of God's Spirit in the normal affairs of daily life, and here again various favorable experiences were related. All of this was what one might expect, was customary to such reports. What differed was the frankness expressed in acknowledging the negative side of matters, It showed that the unity, racial and otherwise, supposedly so exclusively and distinctively the possession of Jehovah's Witnesses, is considerably less than ideal.
Ray has a footnote again from Stephen Hassan, Combating Cult Mind Control, where he talks about this frequently found camaraderie and unity and even friendship found among pretty much all cults.
Mm-hmm.
And Ray comments this way: with regard even to cults such as that of the Moonies, Steve Hassan says in his book, quote, relationships are usually superficial within these groups because sharing of deep personal feelings, especially negative ones, is highly discouraged. This feature of cult life prevails even though a member may feel he is closer to his comrades than he's ever been to anyone before. Indeed, when cult members go through hardship or persecution, they do feel a depth of camaraderie and shared martyrdom that is exceptional. But because the only real allegiance is to the leader, a closer look shows that such ties are actually shallow and sometimes just private fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
So you do feel that when you're in the group, no doubt about it.
Yeah, we said we did have a sense of unity and oneness. I always, in my mind, I always remember like being at district assemblies where everyone stood up and sang together. I would always then have this wonderful feeling of I belong in this group.
Mm.
But the individual people, it was more of a loyalty to the concept, to the organization, to the whole, not to individual people. I loved individual people in the witnesses. I still love them, but I think it is a bit of an illusion to think that you can't have those firm friendships because they have to be able to drop them.
Tenuous.
Yeah, by someone just saying this person is wrong. You don't know anything about it, but you just accept it.
But again, like Ray, I want to cut slack because we know that tenuousness, that inability to have lasting friendships because of the attitude you have to take towards criticism of the thing, your loyalty to the structure, to the men really, is all, it's all normal to human structures and especially anti-God structures. And I'm thinking of David and Jonathan again. What was it? That the friendship between David and Jonathan was real. It was, as David himself confessed, more real than even his love life and all of his marriages and other relationships with females. But
the bond was strong.
But the bond had to break because of the structure that they were all part of, and the Saul, in effect, became God. So Jonathan's own father and the structure that created Saul, Saul, who at this time was God's man, but not God's man.
It's the inability to be completely honest and be able to present the negatives as well as the positives. If you can't do that, it's going to break. Because honesty is necessary for truly good relationships. You have to be able to accept criticism, and you have to be able to give criticism.
As Hassan says, these people in cults cannot reveal their negative feelings.
No.
That's highly discouraged. So you have conditional friendships. And that's inevitable, it would seem, in any structure or system that compels you to an allegiance other than to God.
And you won't be aware of it until that happens. So I didn't have negative feelings for a long time. I didn't have any doubts about the organization. But when it happened, and I realized I couldn't tell anyone, I couldn't talk to anyone about this. There is, I think, the reason why you have so many that just continue to follow.
Yeah.
Because they don't have that experience yet, where they're not able to speak about something, or even it's an inquiry, but you don't dare tell anyone.
Again, it's a real effort to to give benefit of the doubt under such circumstances, but I still think we've all got to make that effort, because Ray himself at the end of Crisis of Conscience makes the effort to say what he identifies as the real problem. And I think his bottom line message at the end of Crisis of Conscience is the way God has ordained the world. There's wheat and there's weeds, and there's JWs and there's the world. And unless you get your mind around the fact that everything out there is imperfect, including the religion that you've sworn allegiance to.
Yeah.
So we're going to link that video, Ray Franz talking about weeds, Jehovah's Witnesses in the world. We'll link that one. That's the end of Crisis of Conscience. And also J.C. Ryle.
How to be holy without God's org.
And next time, all is not well in Nigeria.